Welcome back, everybody. It is the Working Brother back at you with another talk. Yet again, we've got Drago Bosnic. Drago, welcome back.
Great being here, of course.
It's good to have you back. It's been a while. I've been in hiatus. I've had to do some real life stuff that required way much more time than I was ready to devote to it. But, when you start something, you got to finish it. So now that that's mostly over, I'm back to recording. Last time we talked was about a month ago or so. It was you that I had on last before my little break. So yeah, just to let everybody know, today is the 19th of November. We're recording this on the same day that the last two recordings were done. I'm just wearing a different shirt to fool all of you. International Men's Day. If you're interested, go watch the last two episodes with Tim Kirby. They should be good. Now, Drago, you write for Infobricks, which is mirrored by Southfront, that evil organization that gets banned everywhere. Should we do the news? The not so weekly news that have been
monthly and a half news.
Basically, yeah. Let's do the last month and a half of news. Let's start with this one. This one's a gem. Gallup poll finds record-breaking 39% of Americans don't trust U.S. media in the slightest.
Yeah,
Tell us about this.
Hilarious.
Tell us about this joke.
You know, many of these polling organizations are run by Western governments. I mean, officially they're NGOs, but they're actually financed by various government bodies in the West. And if this is what they're admitting now, that it's almost 40%, we can imagine that the real number is at least 50% higher. But of course, I can't really cite imaginary numbers or numbers that I can't really prove. So I'm citing what they're saying. So even that number is just crazy. And I think, considering the fact that people have seen what the official narrative is and how much of a brainwashing it is, I think that's probably a normal reaction from people when they see that their country has turned into what they were claiming that the Soviet Union was 30 or 40 years ago. So I think most Americans, or at least a large number of them, actually realize that whatever the mainstream media says, you have to take it with a big grain of salt. So
as Wyatt says, take it with one solidar, like the whole city that's a mine of salt.
Yeah. Take it with a solid, or maybe a salt planet somewhere in the space, I guess.
The media is quite salty.
Yep.
Kiev's regime's hunger for weapons exasperated by latest Israel-Gaza conflict. Blame Putin. It's Putler's fault, man. Putler told Hamas to attack. Why is that not clear? Everybody should know that. By the way, people who sorry to interrupt. People who just might have stumbled upon this by some miracle of the YouTube algorithm. Hi, welcome. This is a comedy show. Anything that has anything to do with reality is no. Not here. This is all strictly coincidental. Tell us, what has the Israel-Gaza conflict done for Ukraine?
Yeah, I think most people have already realized this by now. But the funny thing about everything that's going on in Gaza now, the involvement of the Kiev regime is obvious. And of course, they probably didn't plan on doing this because it diverts attention and resources from them. But it's one of the side effects of their own corruption, because they just want to take money whenever they can, and they just decided to sell weapons that they got from NATO and the ones they already had to other countries and other groups and other organizations around the world. And some of those weapons actually ended up in Gaza. Because Hamas is trying to get weapons from anywhere they can, because it's very difficult for them to acquire weapons. So why wouldn't they just use the opportunity to buy it from the Ukrainians? And that's what they did. And now this is backfiring on the Kiev regime, because essentially this helped fuel the conflict in Gaza. and the attention is being diverted from them towards the Middle East, which is never good for the Kiev regime.
One thing that the Gaza conflict has brought up, at least in my chat, is a bunch of memes. there's this classic. Did you find? Oh, yeah. Did you hear the IDF found the Arabic copy of Mein Kampf? And that's proof that you know Hamas is bad. Make sure you say it like that, like the Israelis, like the Israelis say it. We've got a bunch of memes here. Most of them are submitted from subscribers. Join us on Telegram. The link is everywhere. We'll not comment on these because we don't want any kind of algorithms. Let's see here. What have I got for you to comment on here? This is a video that I came across by Dark Footage. It's a channel that does all kinds of stuff. And I just wanted to get your take on this little quote here. Let's hear what he has to say.
At the Yeisk Naval Air Station, Afrik disseminated satellite images that displayed what seemed to be an orchestrated effect to confuse both Ukrainian drones and satellites.
Wait, what? The Russians are confusing Ukrainian satellites. You want to tell us about these Ukrainian satellites that I've never heard of before?
Well, I mean, it's I'm going to be very short. They do not exist for some reason.
Russian propaganda. Russian propaganda.
I mean, the Ukrainians have inherited like a very, very robust rocket industry from the Soviet Union. So they do have like space launch vehicles that they've used from their like decommissioned ICBMs. But I'm not going to get into details because that's another topic. But the point is, they do not operate, as far as I know, they do not operate any ISR satellites that could be used to spy on Russians or anyone for that matter. And as far as we know, like NATO is providing that information for them anyways. So exactly. Of course they might be using drones, but satellites, I guess that's a bit of a stretch.
Yep. It's what is it? Misinformation? Disinformation? What is it when it's intention? Yes. Malinformation. There you go. Malinformation. That's what it is. On like the second day of the Hamas and the Israel conflict, this made the rounds. It's by two majors, a Russian channel. Volga is the radio frequency or the operator who the Ukrainian army usually surrenders to, like there's a frequency. So this meme is going, this is Volga, I'm listening to you. What does shalom mean? No, but seriously, the Israeli Defense Forces, as they like to call themselves, or Army, Occupation Forces, as some people call them, I don't know. They've been really funny. They've been like a source of all kinds of memes. I mean, even the UN diplomatic mission of the so-called state of Israel is hilarious. Like, did anybody ask this guy where the like demolished brick came from? You know, these are the bricks that they are throwing at us. Let's get back to reality. I mean, other parody on your parody blog where you write about reality that seems like it's fake. American ISR and logistics directly responsible for civilian deaths in Gaza. No, I thought it was Ukrainian ISR.
Yep, I think the Ukrainian satellites probably contributed to that.
Likely.
But in all seriousness, like this is exactly what's been going on in Ukraine as well, because American drones, especially like those ISR drones, which can really like we have one drone, like for example, the Global Hawk, which can map the entire territory of Ukraine, for example. Those things are essentially deadly weapons. Like they don't shoot, but they tell everyone else where to shoot, which kills people. So they're doing the same in Gaza, obviously. Israel itself does have advanced ISR, but Americans have already like sent a part of their ISR capabilities and assets to and like focused it on the Middle East, where they are like watching on the Iranians, the Syrians, and all these other countries in the region. But this is taking away from Ukraine, which, like, ironically now it's a bad thing for the Ukrainians because they don't have enough ISR information. But the point is, like, wherever American ISR appears, people die. Like, that's the next thing that follows. So
You mean
it's
like
a
weddings in Afghanistan?
reaper.
You mean like weddings in Afghanistan?
Yeah,
In
yeah. For
Pakistan?
example, yeah, like anywhere, essentially anywhere wherever they are, dead people, like vets, like hundreds or thousands of people soon follow. So
You mentioned the Middle East, so let's keep going with the same topic. Unfounded U.S. accusations against Iran could escalate war in the Middle East. What? What? War in the Middle East?
in this case, like this, I wrote this before the latest statements by the Mr. Khamenei, who is like the supreme leader or Ayatollah in Iran. Essentially, when I wrote this, the Americans were claiming that Iran coordinated the Hamas attack on October 7th. And they were like blaming Iran for everything that's going on. And then they like sent 2 carrier groups and they sent a bunch of other like bombers and airplanes aircraft to the region. So like this is already like an escalation that can go beyond, like well beyond Gaza. And it can like push the entire Middle East into a war that they haven't seen since 2003 when the Americans attacked Iraq. So the thing is, Iranians they don't need to be involved directly in Gaza. Like they will support anyone against Israel, obviously, Hamas included, or any other country in the region. But the point is, like, does escalation bring anything good to any of the countries in the Middle East, like including Israel itself? Because Israel is a tiny country, and the Iranians have like thousands of these ballistic missiles with all kinds of warheads, including chemical and biological, according to the American intelligence, which we don't have to take for granted, obviously, but or just take it face value. But the thing is, if that's true, then you shouldn't provoke Iran, because like most Israeli people live in the coastal regions, in Tel Aviv and these other like cities on the coast.
First of all,
So, like,
they're Israeli settlers. They're not people.
yeah,
I mean, they are
Israelis-
people, but they're not citizens per se.
Yeah, like let's say it that way, but the point is, like, we know where they live, right? So if Iran wants to kill most of the Israelis living there, like all they have to do is fire like a chemical warhead.
Have you
on the
heard?
area.
I'm being rhetorical here. Have you heard of the Samson option for Israel?
Yeah.
Can you explain to our viewers what the Samson option is?
Well, I'm not sure. Like, how would I start?
Basically, if Israel feels like it's an existential threat to its existence of the state, it will fire nukes at European and everybody else's capitals. And it's interesting that, like, Israel has his doctrine and is basically holding the world hostage, and it's not being inspected, as Maria Zakharova pointed out when she was like, when that former minister who was fired because he said nuclear weapons of Israel will bomb Gaza. Zakharova was like, what? Where's the UN watchdog, And this is a meme from my personal Facebook from 10 years ago. It popped up on, like, those Facebook reminders. 10 years ago. It's pulling out Syria here. You might not be able to see it. It's like the biological weapons of Syria. So yeah, 10 years ago.
Actually, now that you mentioned the Samson option, I can just I just want to remind people what's the name of the missiles that Israel uses. It's Jericho. And if we know the story about Jericho, and we know how the Jericho was destroyed, this is essentially like they're admitting openly how that would go. So and it's an ICBM. Like, it's always a good question: why would a country like Israel need an ICBM? Like, who are they going to fire at? Like, they don't have any like enemies on the intercontinental level. And most of the like their arch enemy now is Iran, and they can like shoot at Iran with medium range or intermediate range missiles. So they don't really need ICBMs, but they still have them. So like it's a very good question why do they have ICBMs? So I
What do
guess
you say to people who say that, like, because I was talking to a friend and he was like, "Oh, Israel doesn't have nukes. It's a conspiracy." I was like, "Buddy,
well,
you haven't done
I would
enough
advise,
research."
I would advise people to like look for an interview where there was like this former Israeli foreign minister. I can't remember his name exactly, but I think he was an interview for Al Jazeera, and he was asked by the anchor, "Does Israel have nuclear weapons?" And then he says like, because Israel doesn't comment on that. Like Israel doesn't comment on when there are such questions. But at some point he was like agitated, and he said, "So what?" So if that's not an admittance that they do have nuclear weapons, I don't know what is. So the scary part is they have like anywhere between 90 and 400 nukes. So the most cited number I've heard was 80 to 90, but I've also heard from various intelligence sources that they could have up to 400. So that's a lot. I mean, that's a lot for such a small country. The crazy part is officially not even China has 400 nukes, like or even the UK and France. I think they have a smaller number than that. So why would a
You know
small
what I
country like-
find? You know what I find refreshing, or like calming? The fact that Russia's S-300 and S-400 that are based in Syria basically cover all of Israel. So if anything is launched like that, it would probably be shot down by Russia before it gets out of the airspace of Israel. If it does come to that kind of
they could do that.
apocalyptic.
On the other hand, like these S-300, S-400 systems, they're like multi-role. So like, it's a big question if the Russians would target those before they reach before they exit the atmosphere and get to the troposphere or stratosphere or like above that. So like it's still risky, because generally speaking, shooting down any sort of ICBM is a very difficult task. Even if you have like a dedicated anti-missile defense system in place, even if you know where the certain missile is going to go, even then it's very difficult. Like for example, the most advanced anti-ballistic missile system in the world is probably the American GMD. And even this system has only like 55% of chance of defeating like these ancient American ICBMs like the Minuteman III. And that's like a regular ballistic missile. Like, can you even imagine how hard that would be against a missile that's like modern and it's maneuvering or changing?
Or has decoys and so on. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, let's hope that doesn't happen, because shooting down those things is like, it's not a given. It doesn't mean it's going to happen 100%.
Got it. Note taken. So don't rely on Russian air defense to stop Israeli World War
Don't rely on any air
Armageddon.
defense to stop any ICBMs. You can only rely on return.
All right. Let's get back to these articles because we're about like 4 articles in, I think, and there's quite a few to get to because we've been slacking, or I have. You've been writing, but I've been not making jokes. So, whose side is Turkey on in the latest Middle East conflict? The latest Middle East conflict. The oldest Middle East conflict, I might add, that has sparked up again. Turkey, the eternal two-faced sultan.
Like Turkey is, we don't have to say Turkey, we just say Erdogan. I guess that would be more than enough. Like this guy is two-faced beyond belief. Like, it's so funny, seeing him officially condemn Israel and support Gaza, when in fact Turkey is one of the like major exporters to Israel of various like very important commodities.
This is my surprised face. I'm practicing. This is my surprised face. Last episode, I was also surprised at some shocking revelations that my guests put out there. So wait, you're telling me that Turkey works with Israel, and like?
Yeah, I know it's shocking to anyone who knows anything about geopolitics, I guess. But in all seriousness, it's like they're working closely together behind the curtain, and the thing is, the Israeli military and the Turkish military are also like very close, and they've been very close for decades. So, I mean, they oftentimes coordinate their attacks on Syria. So, like, oftentimes when Israel starts bombing targets in Syria, you have escalation in the Idlib area, which is like all this like Al Qaeda, ISIS infested area,
No.
which is like Turkey for the most part, and NATO.
Say,
Uh,
say it isn't so.
so it's it's very strange that Syria, which is effectively an ally of Hamas, right? I mean, they could call themselves allies because Hezbollah is also an ally of Hamas. So like, why would you like attack the country that's fighting the country that's attacking Gaza? So why would you do that? And the Turks always do that, but for some reason Erdogan just loves to play the Palestine card for his voters and supporters, and then like they go together, they shout all sorts of like anti-Israeli slogans and stuff like that. But what good does that do? Like for the Palestinians specifically, nothing. And in reality, Turkey is actually helping everything that's going on in
Yep.
Gaza. And also, when he talks about genocide, I mean, Erdogan is talking about genocide. It has to be the most hilarious thing ever.
Um, you're referring to the Armenian genocide that didn't happen.
Yeah, of course,
right?
of course, and it's not even over. Like they essentially just expelled over 100,000 Armenians from their ancestral. They've been,
Shh. They're Orthodox. Shh. You can't talk
Yeah.
about that. It's like nobody cares. They're not Muslim. They're not
Yeah.
Muslim, and they're not like LGBTQ plus. So nobody cares.
Yeah.
Did Western weapons smuggled from Ukraine help fuel Israel-Gaza conflict? One of my favorite topics.
Yeah, this is essentially what I've been saying just when we were talking about how the situation in Ukraine is being exacerbated by the Gaza conflict. So essentially, what I've been saying, like a lot of weapons from Ukraine have actually ended up in the hands of the Hamas service members. So, like, how would they explain that? Like, there's no other way to get these weapons except through the black market and the dark net from the Ukrainians, from the AFU. So, like, I think the Kiev regime has a lot of explaining to do. Why is that so?
You think it's the Kiev regime? You don't think it's like even before it got to Kiev, like the like whoever the handlers or the like. What was the name of that movie? Lord of War.
Yeah.
The like air smuggling guy.
The Ukrainian military or the Kiev regime, to be specific, because it's not really Ukrainian. Let's be honest. Like they are probably the middlemen in all this, because like whoever is sending these weapons to Hamas or whoever, Mexican cartels or whichever group around the world, they need some sort of like a backstory how this is going on and why is it going on. And Ukraine is a perfect scapegoat. You can just say, well, we're sending weapons to Ukraine and then just divert it wherever you want.
Yeah, what can I say? I was watching Defense Politics Asia recently, and in one of his episodes about maybe 2 weeks ago, a week ago, something like that, he mentioned that there was a lot more air-to-air shoot-downs of Ukrainian aircraft by the Russians. And basically, this little article, I think, goes into why that might be. Do you want to tell us why that might be? While I leave this amazing bird up here.
On this picture, we see the A-50U, which is like the AWACS system for the aircraft for early warning and command and control. And what this aircraft does is has like these very good ISR systems, which can map the entire like area of Ukraine or in entire part of Ukraine, like half of the country or even a third of the country. And what this does, it helps the S-400 and these other long-range air defense systems to target low-flying aircraft. So the point is, like, what most people don't know is S-400, S-300, and all these like Russian air defense systems, they were mostly designed since the 70s and 80s and 90s to shoot down high-flying bombers and strategic aircraft. So the point is, in order to avoid them or to avoid detection by them, what you have to do is you have to fly very low. And like that's a way for the Ukrainians to operate their whatever is left of their air force. So and that's why like the Russians have not been able to shoot down every single one of the every single airplane that the AFU is using because they're just flying way too low. So what the A50U does, it actually ameliorates this problem by detecting low-flying aircraft. And then it relays this information to the S-400, and then they fire a missile from 400 kilometers away and shoot down whatever they want, essentially.
Amazing. Thank you, Drago, for that detailed explanation. Everyone, thank you who's bought me a coffee already. Everybody who didn't know, you can buy me a coffee. Coffees make this show run. In the meantime, let's see what else Drago has lined up here for us. Oh, shocking visuals from Israel-Gaza conflict. Putin offers solution to stop further bloodshed in the Israel-Gaza conflict. What was Putin's solution?
Well, Putin's solution was like, start like a ceasefire and start negotiating. And like this would like make it possible for all the hostages to be released, for like prisoner exchange, whatever you want to call it. And it would actually stop the bloodshed that we're seeing now. So like his solution was very reasonable. Like it's always better to negotiate than to, kill each other. And I mean, we've seen that in Ukraine, where he actually tried to negotiate with the Kiev regime and with the West, but of course the West made sure that doesn't happen. So, like, I mean, any sane person would say, okay, we don't want anyone to die. We don't want any Palestinian kids to get blown up to pieces or entire families to be killed. We don't want any Israeli people to be killed either, obviously. So, like, the best thing you can do is just stop the killing, like stop the war so that you can negotiate a reasonable deal. But of course, like someone else doesn't, it's not in the interest of someone else to do that, especially the big protector of Israel, the country that's like 10,000 kilometers across the ocean, and from the area where it shouldn't be at all, but I guess they are.
The country where Russia stole its hypersonic technology from.
Exactly. That one, exactly. I mean, that one is hilarious. I mean, it's obvious from the title that, and just so that the people don't say that I support Trump unequivocally, I actually criticized him in this article because he keeps claiming, and this has been like the case for the last 3 or 4 years, he's been claiming that Russia stole American hypersonic technology. Which to me is beyond laughable, because how the hell do you steal something from someone and then they suddenly, steal knowledge from someone, and then that means like what? You take a part of their brain with you and they don't know it anymore? Is that how it works? Because like if I want to steal something like some knowledge from you, you should have it in the first place, right? And the point is like the Americans don't have any working hypersonic missiles, and the Russians have like half a dozen at least, and I'm talking about strategic ones, important ones. They have like dozens of like short-range hypersonic missiles on various platforms. So like how does that work? Like how is it possible that Russia steals something from America that America itself doesn't have?
Russian propaganda, I tell you. This is user submitted, also, or subscriber submitted, I should say, follower on Telegram. Could be Citizen 1001, I'm not sure. There's a couple of them that I saved of his and a couple of others. How to avoid adverts on YouTube. Do you see adverts on this video, people? If you do, leave a comment below, because you shouldn't. This is not monetized, because I can't monetize my channel even if I wanted to, and because you should be running an ad block. At least I am, or trying to. Also, this, yeah, we've seen this one already. Excellent. Now we've gotten some memes out of the way. Let's go back to those news articles. Yes. Why U.S. still seeking Ukrainian scapegoats over its Nord Stream terrorist attack? I learned about this from Christoforu, who we've had on, and or I've had on, because there's no we at the Working Brother. It's the royal we. It's my imaginary me, myself, and I. Anyway, this guy was already in jail.
Yeah, like
What?
Like, this is a perfect opportunity. Like, this actually ties into the ongoing spat between the Kiev regime and Zelensky, the head of the Ukrainian military. So essentially, like, this guy is accused of. The Americans are accusing this guy of coordinating the Nord Stream attacks. I guess he did all that from his cell. So it's interesting. I mean, they're claiming that this guy did that. At the same time, he's being accused that he's like undermining, the Ukrainian military, because I'm not sure if people remember, but back in June last year, the Russians and the FSB actually made a very good counterintelligence operation against Ukraine, where they faked that one of the Russian pilots is going to, defect to Ukraine. And what they did is, like, they were pretending that's going to happen. And the pilot actually did start flying and he did, fly to that area, but not to defect, but to bomb the area. And they gave him all the info because, they had to, like.
Yeah, I remember that. That was a good play.
They had to tell all the air defense units to stand down, which, made it possible for him to bomb the target that he wanted to. And this guy is being accused of making that happen because, he was tricked into believing that somebody's going to defect to Ukraine. So this guy's being accused of that.
I didn't know that.
At the same time, this very convenient accusation that he did the Nord Stream attacks too, springs up. So, it's a very easy thing to do because, like, the guy's going to jail anyway. So if you want to pin it on someone, well, why wouldn't you just do it on someone who already is in jail?
Interesting detail. I did not know he was accused of that. I knew he was in jail, but I didn't know what for. The return of Soviet military superpower. Dun, 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 dun. No, seriously speaking, tell us about Soviet military superpower.
Yeah.
What do you mean Soviet?
Well, essentially, the Russians are, like, effectively doubling their defense spending, or I'm not even sure if we can call what's happening in the world now a defense spending. It's more like just military spending, I guess.
World War III preparations.
Yeah. Let's just call it that way. That's
pre-war buildup. Pre-war buildup. Hey, by the way, subscribers who've been here for a long time will know I called it World War III a long time ago. Like when we first started this whole Working Brother Talks, we called it. It was World War III already in the works. And now everybody's like, oh, is it going to be World War III soon? Is it already World War III? Is this a cold World War III? Yeah.
If we didn't have all these nukes and ICBMs, we would have been in World War III a long time ago. So let's just hope there's not going to be any complete nuclear disarmament, because that's when all the conventional stuff is going to start flying above our heads and on our heads, I guess.
Wait, are you pro-gun? Are you trying to say that the only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun? Yeah, that sounds like what you're saying.
Yeah. I'm actually worse than that. I'm pro nuke gun. So.
Yes, this is a pro nuke and pro gun channel.
Yeah. Like if you ever wanted a better chance to get demonetized, now it's the chance.
This is also a comedy channel. If they really no, I am already demonetized. Like, I don't care about monetization. It's just about like, are they going to delete everything and memory hole it?
Oh yeah, are they going to take you down? Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only quote unquote fear I have. But I have, like, now Working Brothers on Rumble, so I'll leave a link, and if more than 100 people subscribe on Rumble, I'll upload another video on Rumble. There you go. For all the people that made it to the 34th minute of this talk. In any case, Let's go to the next article here. What have you got? Russia deploys MiG-31s in response to supercarrier. Yeah, that was hilarious. Putin was like, yeah, we're just going to fly here. And if you check your numbers, we can hit your aircraft carriers in about like 8 seconds, I think it was, or like 10 seconds or something like that. Since like I click fire and then like your aircraft carrier needs to move or disappear. So,
Well, they
yeah.
don't have to worry about it. You know, they shot down the Kinjal over Ukraine. You know, they shot down
Right.
the
Yeah.
Kinjals with Patriots. So I guess the air defenses on the nuclear.
Hold on.
aircraft carriers.
Speaking of, now that you mentioned Patriots and air defenses, I have to bring this up because, recently Houthis all the way from fucking Yemen fired into Israel, and the U.S. was supposed to intercept it with its land-based Patriot in Saudi and its ships from the Red Sea, and it didn't intercept all of the Houthi missiles, let alone fucking something more serious.
Yeah, like those Houthi missiles are essentially made by ragtag guys who in some sort of like a basement or a hole in the fucking ground or something.
Are they though? Because I've seen footage of Houthis with Iranian what are they called? Fatah missiles, I think they're called.
Yeah. Well, yeah. The thing is, like, what the Iranians do, they send in parts, and then the Houthis just piece them together and then fire them. I mean, these missiles are not bad. I'm not saying they're bad. It's just that they're like several times worse, or like 100 times worse than any Russian missile currently in service. Because like these are essentially based on like Soviet era designs that the Russians are like not using anymore. They haven't been using them for decades because they're obsolete for their like standard. But obviously they work. They do still do work for the Iranians and Houthis. And like the thing is, it's ridiculous. Like that's why I'm saying, why are Americans worried about MiG-31s? And I should note that these MiG-31s are not flying over Eastern Mediterranean. They're flying over the Black Sea, which means that they would fire their missiles that would fly over Turkey into Eastern Mediterranean, hitting hitting American aircraft carriers, which they can do, by the way. Like they can do that. So, I mean, why are Americans worried when they already shot down the Kinjal, right, over Kiev, as they keep claiming? Like, the Kinjal that's actually like 3 times smaller than Klitschko, even though like the actual Kinjal is like 3 times bigger than Klitschko. So it's crazy.
We've got some more memes here because we had a little bit of too serious topic moment. I think this covers it. I don't think any comment is necessary.
Yeah.
And a variation on the theme. Yeah. Haha. Ha ha ha. That's my polite British laugh for anybody who's paying attention. Let's do this.
Yeah, this
Bangladesh.
is
Tell us about Bangladesh.
This is an interesting topic. Essentially, what's going on here is Bangladesh has Russia's building the first nuclear power plant for Bangladesh, and Bangladesh keeps cooperating with Russia in this regard. But the Americans are very upset. They don't want to, or they can't build a nuclear power plant in Bangladesh, but they're upset that Bangladesh asked Russia to do so, because obviously Bangladesh wants its own citizens to live a normal, prosperous life. Can you imagine that somebody wants that for themselves? I guess. I mean, isn't it better to want American freedom and democracy bombs dropping on your head? It's way better, I guess.
It is better, man. We all know how it worked out for Libya.
Yeah.
Libya
I
is like
what's wrong with Bangladesh government. Like, why the hell would they want nuclear power plants when they can have bombs and democracy and stuff?
Getting back to the Patriot thing, you also sent along this article. THAAD and Patriot deployments indicate U.S. readies for war with Iran. Iran, yeah. Sorry, I mean Iran. Because it's not Iran. Yeah. Iran.
Well, I mean, it's obvious. It's pretty obvious. Like, why would you need the THAAD and Patriots against Hamas. Like they don't have any sort of a missile that you would need that sort of air defense to shoot down. They have like these dirt cheap, non-guided missiles and rockets, which already being dealt with for the most part with the Iron Dome. So why would you need strategic air defenses against Hamas? So it's obvious that this is against, this is targeted against Iran, because Iran has a very sizable ballistic missile arsenal, much of which is targeted towards Israel and American military bases around the Middle East. So that actually essentially ties into what we already said about Iran and possible like American involvement against Iran.
We have a break. It's not sponsored. It's from ABC News. They put up this commercial, I believe it is, in the middle of some downtown U.S. city. Could be New York, could be lying. I don't know. It says stand with Ukraine, and then stand with Israel comes along and pushes it under. And the Israeli flag pops up, and it's just brilliant. It's watch the news. Don't stand with Ukraine, stand with Israel. Watch the news. And there's a movie premiere that says Trolls right under it, which I think is just wonderful. Just wonderful.
Well, this perfectly ties into the Gallup poll that says that 40% of Americans don't trust the news. Well, I wonder why.
In Germany, meanwhile, everybody might know this meme. So, some graffiti artists. In Germany, by the way, you can't say from the river to the sea, Palestine, blah, blah, blah. Because we don't know if you can say it on YouTube, so I'm just going to blah, 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 blah. But you can't say that in Germany or you'll go to jail, apparently. So don't say from the river to the sea, Palestine shall walk to the ocean.
The crazy part about Germany is like they are like adamant that they should support Israel because of what they did to the Jews in World War II, because of the Holocaust and everything. However, they don't have a qualm of any kind to support the neo-Nazi junta in Kiev. So like, why on earth do they think it's moral to support Israel, but it's also more immoral to support the actual Nazis in Kiev? So, or Nazis, though, as you said, like
Fans of nuts. Fans of nuts.
So like it's crazy, like they, when we talk about Holocaust, they did Holocaust not just to the Jews, but also to tens of millions of Slavs, including Russians.
Russian propaganda. Russian propaganda.
So like why do they think it's okay to give to this neo-Nazi guys in Kiev? Why is it okay to give them missiles and shells and artillery, or all kinds of weapons, essentially, to kill more Russians, which they already killed like almost 30 million 80 years ago? But at the same time, it's not okay, like, to at least be neutral when it comes to a conflict in the Middle East. So
this is probably why. I think the next article that you sent along tells us why. What does this article actually say? Because I haven't read any of these articles. Like, you send them along, I forward them, but like, I don't read any of this. Like, I read the headlines and I get the gist. Like, I don't need to know. Like, I believe the source. I don't need to know all the details of, does Germany want war in Europe? Yeah, probably, but they wants to like sacrifice Poland first. Tell me how correct I am.
Well, essentially, as you said, you got a gist of it, and you mentioned most of the things. I actually talked about this before. But the thing is, like, they keep escalating by sending like more and more advanced weapons to the Kiev regime, including like these long-range cruise missiles, like the so-called Taurus, which is like kind of very similar to the Scalp EG, or the Storm Shadow, as it's called in the UK. Like, at what point does this stop? And at what point does Germany realize that the Russians are not going to, it's going to be gloves off for the Russians if they ever have to fight the Germans again? Like, they're not going to send 10 million guys to die fighting the Germans. They're going to send, 10 nukes to get rid of anything that, might lead to the death of 10 million Russians. So the point is, like, they never seem to learn their lesson. Like, they keep doing their favorite Drang nach Osten, as they would say. So it's crazy.
Peace talks. Let's call it a draw. Let's call it a draw, comrade. What can I say? Chinese military bases in the Middle East. What? Tell us more, Drago. Tell us more about Chinese military bases.
Yeah, well, essentially, like maybe a better title would have been one Chinese military base, which is not even there yet. But essentially, what the Chinese are doing, they just want to make sure that their, one belt, one road initiative, is protected, at least, on a basic level. So that's one of the reasons why they want to make sure, they have at least one military base along this project, along the path of this project. So, and, now the American media is going crazy. Like, can you imagine a country that has like hundreds of military bases around the world and dozens around the Middle East is now worried that there's going to be one Chinese naval base or Air Force base in this area, which is going to do what exactly? Attack all the American bases and win? I mean, it's ridiculous. But the point is, like, the Americans realize that when there is a Chinese military base, they will not be, able to destabilize that area, as they want or as they go. So, this is actually like narrowing down their maneuver ability. And they just, they're just worried about it. They're worried that they will not be able to, intervene whenever they want, as they like to say.
Intervene, huh?
Yeah.
We've got some more memes lined up here for all those people who stuck around. Ouch. This one was brutal. For children of Western democracies, it was titled. This one was sent in by a subscriber. Also brutal. Also brutal. That's all I can say. This one is educational. This is an educational meme for all those who might be serving in the American Army or Navy or Armed Forces and don't know about the USS Liberty.
Yeah. Be aware of Israeli jets flying over you thinking it's friendly force.
Yeah, that's a good way to summarize it. So yeah, I think that's these three brutal memes. Let's do this and then let's go back to your articles. We've got only a couple more to get through. EU carbon tax on Chinese and Indian imports, environmentalism or geopolitics? Well, it's not environmentalism. It's not environmentalism, and I don't think it's even geopolitics. I think it's just racism, man. But tell us what you wrote about.
Well, essentially, like you gave the answer already. Like, I mean, I was thinking more with something euphemistic like geopolitics, but you said it already. So, I mean, it's crazy. Like, what the EU wants to do is it wants Indian and Chinese companies to give them, the yearly, like the data on the yearly production of carbon. And then, according to this data, they would tax them. Like the more carbon do you produce, the bigger the taxes. And they think, the Chinese and Indian companies will give them the actual data. It's insane. But anyway, like the point is, like, they obviously want to use this as a way to get Chinese and Indian companies out of the EU market. I mean, because it's just impossible that they're so obsessed with the carbon, the emissions and everything, that they would like destroy their own economies to do that. I think this is all just business and essentially geopolitics as well, because the more present Chinese and Indian companies are on the European market, the more powerful they are. So like this is a way to get rid of the competition.
I just want to flash back everyone to the beginning of the invasion of Gaza, as it was called, or as it is called. National Meme Coordination Body, or NMKT, Nacionalno Meme Coordinaciono Telo, put out a meme and sent me along the translation. Oh, wait, what am I doing? No, I should click here first and then do this. There we go. Look at those fools. They attached cages on the tanks. It's making fun of the Russian cope cages. What do you have to say about cope cages appearing on Israeli tanks?
Well, I guess it's going very good for them, right? I mean, in all seriousness, I think everybody realizes now that, aesthetics is not part of the warfare. Like, if you want to go for aesthetics, you're going to live for 10 minutes, maybe more likely 5 minutes, and then you're going to be a very beautiful dead body, maybe. So, like, warfare doesn't work on aesthetics; it works on functionality. So if it's functional, nobody cares if it looks nice or not. So like, these cope cages are a way to cope with drones. So I think it's going to become a standard part of the equipment for any tank, worth its salt anywhere in the world. Because what's the point of like investing millions of dollars into building a tank? And its sensors and advanced stuff that you need on it, and then all this gets destroyed by a $1,000 drone, or a $500 drone. So like the economy in this case, the economies of scale are just insane. Like, you have millions of dollars worth of equipment destroyed by a drone that's worth a couple $100. So these cope cages are going to become part of them, like essentially become like a mandatory thing for any tank which is going to be in any sort of like conflict zone. So the Israelis are just seeing that, and like, well, like nowadays the wars are so like televised and so like streamed online that people will always see parts of the war that they are interested in, and they can learn from this. Like, the entire world is learning from the Ukrainian conflict. And like all these militaries will use the experience from the Ukrainian conflict to upgrade their own militaries.
So what you're saying is that these unknown unknowns have become knowns. Haha. This is me leading into the next article that you sent along. Why did you tell people about this? This is hilarious.
This one is essentially, I've quoted one of the U.S. Air Force secretaries. I mean, the current U.S. Air Force secretary. For those people that don't know, in the U.S. you have the Defense Ministry, or the Defense Secretary, like the guy who runs the civilian part of the military. But you also have like a separate secretary for the U.S. Air Force. That's how important the U.S. Air Force is for the United States. And the U.S. Air Force actually handles all of the American ICBMs, these land-based ICBMs. And the crazy part is these ICBMs are actually so obsolete, the current American ICBMs, that, they're like 50 to 60 years old at this point. And they're so old that the guys who designed them and the guys who worked on them and their assistants, most of them are not only retired, but most of them are actually dead. Like, they died years ago. So the problem that the Americans have now is that these obsolete ICBMs form their entire ICBM fleet, and they've started, like in the last couple of times when they actually try to fire them, to test fire them, they've been, they had some very disturbing failures. I mean, disturbing for them, obviously. And now they're working on a new one to replace these all old, like ancient Minuteman III ICBMs. And this new one is called LGM-35A Sentinel. This new one that they have to make to replace the old ones, it's not going to be ready by early 2030s at best. Because what actually happened is that people who designed ICBMs, land-based ICBMs in America, again, they're all dead or like long retired. So like, America, what it has to do now, it has to rebuild an entire industry to, replace these ICBMs. And that's going to take 5 to 10 years at best. And then it's going to take another 10 years to deploy all these things and produce them and deploy them, which is going to cost a lot of money, obviously. So America is essentially like relearning what they had like in the 60s.
Got it. You've got another little article here. Let me load that up. This one. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
We've already seen videos of them going hunting for women who are pregnant and giving them orders. Now we recently saw a video, could be fake, could not be, of Russians capturing a woman. Oh, did your lights go out? What happened to you? Okay, we seem to have lost Drago.
It seems I
hello?
got a power outage.
Oh, all right.
So
what can I say? All right. That's a new one.
Yeah.
We've never had people talking to us from the dark, but I guess you fit the theme.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? Yeah, so we saw these videos of the Ukrainians surrendering, Ukrainian woman surrendering and saying she was pregnant. Don't hit me. What do you make of that?
Well, I mean, she could be lying, right? Like, she could be saying this just to survive. However, I've already seen videos where pregnant women were given draft notices, which is insane. It's just crazy that like anyone sane would want a pregnant woman like 1,000 miles away from any sort of like warfare. However, these guys are sending pregnant women to war. So, like how do you make sense of that? Like, make it make sense. Like, I don't understand. If you want like any
Listen,
sort
the
of
only thing, I was just talking to Tim Kirby about this. You might want to watch the other episodes if you care, subscribers. But basically the idea is like maybe she got pregnant on the front on purpose. Like she was mobilized, not pregnant, and then got pregnant on the front on purpose in order to get off the front. But that was not granted. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's very possible. It's very possible that's the case. However, like it still doesn't explain why are actual pregnant women getting draft notices, like still in those who are not in war, you know? And it's just insane because first of all, like I understand there are a lot of women, you know, in history that have contributed to, you know, fights against various enemies like the Nazis in World War II and so on. However, I don't think females in the military should be encouraged. Not because I don't want women to have the same rights as men, obviously, but it's because war is brutal. It's ugly business as it is, even for the toughest of guys. And you can imagine like what sort of horrors even male POWs can go through. Now imagine like a woman who is a POW, what she could go through. So it's even worse. And that's why I think, you know, like women in the military are, I mean, they can be in the military, serve as, I don't know, logistics or drone operators, whatever, but not the frontline units. It's, you know, the frontline, anyone who has seen how brutal this war can be or any war can be, you know, anyone like who's like sane but would want a woman of any kind to be in such a situation, especially a pregnant one. But I guess, you know, all this is just normal for the neo-Nazi junta because they're selling kids, Ukrainian kids, to pedophiles and all these like other guys around the world. So I don't.
This is a comedy show, man. You're getting too serious.
I should say the MAP, minor attracted people, I guess, as they're called now. Like they're sending kids to MAPs, and even worse, they're sending kids to people who are like trying to get kids as organ donors, non-willing, obviously.
No comment. Let's first of all, can we get a like here? Can we get a like and follow the link to his Telegram channel, Drago's Telegram channel? Give him a subscribe for being a champion, for sticking through us, even through a power outage. Like if I was in his place, I'd be like, okay, that's a wrap. But he keeps going. Oh, there we go. Oh, and the power is back. It is just like we scheduled this. This is unbelievable. Excellent. See, that's what perseverance pays off. He stuck through the power outage. Excellent. So I guess it's just some neighbors fixing some lights, huh? Or drilling through a wall. In any case, we've got one more article here. And then we've got a couple more iffy memes. We'll call them that for now. Let's see what this says. Why are Ukrainian POWs joining the Russian military? What? No, I know about this. Apparently that like ant hill or what's it called? Terracone that was stormed north of Avdiivka was actually stormed by these troops, if I'm not mistaken. The Ukrainian turned Russian troops. Tell us more.
Well, obviously, I really hope this is going to become a more common occurrence because I think an increasing number of Ukrainians realize that the Russians are not their enemy. The Russians and Ukrainians, as far as I'm concerned, are not different people at all. Like, they're the same people who have been pushed against each other by these foreign powers. So the thing is, I think what is happening now is these people who are Ukrainian POWs. Obviously many of them could be Russian, because there's a bunch of Russians in Ukraine, especially those who have been forcibly mobilized and sent to certain death. And why wouldn't they just surrender to the Russians, to their own people? On the other hand, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of Ukrainians who just realize, these Russians, they're not actually the monsters that they've been telling us about. They're normal people who are treating us right. There are even videos where there are Ukrainian POWs and they're having their own families come visit. I'm not sure if that's ever been seen in the history of warfare, at least in modern times, where the enemy would let the families of their enemies to come and visit them when they're in POW camps. Camps. I wouldn't call them camps. It's more like housing, regular housing. So the thing is, who does that? If you hate someone, if you consider them your true enemy, why would you let their families come and visit them? And I think this was like a revelation for many Ukrainians when they realized that the Russians are treating them like humans. And we've seen a lot of videos where the Russians are treating the wounded guys, Ukrainian wounded guys, where even when Wagner was fighting in Bakhmut, we could see that they actually show respect towards the dead, the Ukrainians who died, and they would bury them with honors and bury them
unlike the defense forces of Zion. We've seen those videos too. Yeah.
It's and now that you mentioned that, for the last 2 years, we've been listening about the evil Russians killing everyone in Ukraine, and in fact, in just 2 weeks, we've seen how evil the Russians are, right, in Ukraine.
Yeah, comparatively,
yeah.
But of course, as we saw with the earlier meme, there was no bomb. What bomb? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let's do this little bit of a meme first. No matter how paranoid or conspiracy-minded you are, what the government is doing is worse than you imagine. Says who? William Blum, former U.S. State Department employee.
Yeah.
So let's just leave that out there in the ether and see if we can click along to the next one. The secret of happiness is to face the fact that the world is horrible, 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 says Bertrand Russell, who, if memory serves me, was not the nicest guy. I don't think Bertrand Russell is someone to aspire to. This one's a classic. This is the end. Time to get off.
Since you mentioned Bertrand Russell, at least he exposed American war crimes in Vietnam. There was this so-called the Russell's Court, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure what the English name is in Serbian. It essentially translates to Russell's Court, where he exposed a lot of war crimes that the U.S. forces did in Vietnam, including the usage of biological and chemical weapons, which we would probably not know if it weren't for guys like him. And he said he's not the best of guys, but at least he was honest about certain things.
Yeah, honesty is a good quality. Like this is honest. It is the end. Goodbye. This is also hilarious. I left the best for last. In case you don't know, Strelkov, who we all love on this channel. About every guest that I've had on loves Strelkov. He's the you see that tick? I can't even lie. I had to touch my nose. That's hilarious. Yeah, so nobody likes Strelkov. None of my guests do anyway. But the point is he's running.
He's the most optimistic Russian ever. Optimistic about the SMO especially.
He's running for presidency in Russia from his holding cell apparently. Yeah.
Like, I wonder what his program will be. Oh, I'm president now. Russia doesn't exist anymore. Like, every town is a republic for itself. I guess that would be his like logic.
Really, you think so?
Well, I mean, he keeps saying that Russia is the worst country in the world, and the Russian army is incapable. The Russian army is in tatters. The Ukrainians are invincible, and it's just insane. I mean, like, I've never heard a single good word about Russia coming from him. So, like, such a self-defeatist, way of thinking. Like, how far would you get with that?
I just want to start up two little points here. They're more local, Serbia-based, let's put it that way. And I put out this little thing that the only difference between what's happening to Serbs in Kosovo and what's already happened to Palestinians in Palestine, or in the Mandate of Palestine, if you want to get technical, because it's been happening for a while now, is time. Yeah. As a Serb, how do you feel about that? Do you think this is apt comparison, or do you think this is wrong and missing the mark?
Well, like, it's not a 100%, like, there aren't like parallels in terms of 100%, but like, in terms of the modern age, the 20th century, yeah, I guess we could compare it to that, because just like it was essentially legalized, let's say legalized, for all these Palestinians to be driven out of their land, it's also been legalized by the same Western powers that Serbs are going to be expelled from their own ancestral lands. So,
including Srpska Krajina, where you are from, originally, I should add.
I've actually experienced that myself. So yeah, like, the Serbs who lived in my area where I used to be, which is now part of Croatia, like, they were also deemed unfit to be there, even though it's been our land for centuries. And like, most of my ancestors actually lived there. Not most, all of my ancestors lived there for over 1,000 years, and I have actually had that documented even before. Unfortunately, like, most of that was lost in the war, but like, we did a lot of research about this, and we know, like, the area which I still own, like, it's still my house, and my land in that area has been mine since the 12th century, essentially. So, and there was a document proving it. So the thing is, like, there are obviously differences, but the thing is, we cannot talk about the international law if it's not enforced everywhere equally. We can only talk about the right of power. Like, we can only talk about the possibility of certain countries enforcing something, regardless if it goes against international law So the thing is, like, what they will do something, and then they will try to how do you say it, like, make it backwards compatible with international law. Like, they will just legalize it after it's already done, and then they will, like, make the narrative. They will create the narrative that whoever is the victim is like supposedly an aggressor or a killer or whatever. And they did this. They did this in Kosovo. They did this in the area where I was driven from. They did this in Bosnia. They're doing it in the Middle East, everywhere. So, like, Americans came to liberate Iraq from itself, right? The Serbs in Kosovo are aggressors, even though they're on their own land. The Serbs in Krajina were aggressors on Croatia, so to speak. So, like, it's always the same narrative. And, well, what can I say? Like, trust the media.
Yeah, that's a perfect circling back to the beginning and the first article about that poll. Let's do this National Meme Coordination Body answer to this Ambassadeur Oliver. I don't know where he's from. Nobody cares. But he's pretending to be an ambassador in so-called Kosovo. And he went on a trip where he was discovering the rich historical heritage in Novo Berde, to which all communities contributed. So National Meme Coordination Body answers him with, "Do you hear me? What is the meaning of Novo Berde in Albanian?"
For those, say that. I was literally about to say that.
For those who don't know Serbian, you should start to learn it. But other than that, Novo Brdo means new hill in Serbian. So Novo Verde
means literally nothing. So I mean, the entire so-called country of Kosovo, which is essentially just a Serbian medieval land, means the land of blackbirds. Like, what does Kosovo mean in Albanian? Like they could change the name to Kosove, Kosova, Kosovo, whatever they want to call it. It's still Kosovo, which is a very like clearly a Slavic toponym, which means like it doesn't belong to them. They've just been settled there. So it's insane, it's insane. But I guess if it's okay for Washington D.C., then it's just perfectly legal, as they say, and it's in accordance with the international law.
I'm gonna leave it with this as our closing meme. This is hilarious. With the dog chasing him, it's just beautiful. It's beautiful. Drago, thank you for coming back on. As always, it's been an excellent talk with you. We've learned a lot of things. We had a couple of laughs. People liked, shared, and subscribed. And everything went well. The recording even worked. We even made it through a power outage. That was a first for us. That was a first for the Working Brother Talks. Excellent. Drago, anything you want to say before we bring this to an end?
Well, I guess I talked a lot. We had a lot of topics to cover, so I guess people have, heard me more than enough.
All right. Everyone, thank you for sticking around. Have a good one. See you soon.